your other most recent videos revolved around one Ben Simmons. Came with the catchy title of the 76ers should not trade Ben Simmons. Not too many people are making that take out there. Everyone just pretty much has ridden him onto every other team in the books. Can you kind of like explain a little to the listeners who may not have seen that video, like your thoughts on why the 76ers should keep Simmons?
Look, I just think that he's 24 years old, going on 25. He's locked in for the next 4 years at $146 million. There aren't that very many commodities out there like him available. And I just don't think that. So right now, his trade value is at an all-time low, right? You're going to trade him while his value is at an all-time low. What are you going to get in return? Malcolm Brogdon and a first-round pick? That's not going to move the needle for me or for the Philadelphia 76ers. Let's not forget, for all of his limitations, for all of his faults, especially when it comes to the free throw line, when it comes to the end of games, he's still a 3-time All-Star, a 2-time All-Defensive selection, and the runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year, all the while only being 24 years old. And so there's still potential to grow. I go back and look at his summer league tape. He was shooting the ball. He wasn't scared. Clearly, this is a mental thing. It's not as if he literally can't shoot. It's not as if he has a broken jumper. His jumper doesn't look that broken. It can be fixed. And I think that there's still time for them to really work this stuff out. And even if he does return, it doesn't mean he has to be the point guard. Maybe they can look for a point guard or another guard in the backcourt that can handle the ball, that can shoot the basketball. And I think you could shift him over to power forward. You can let him be the point forward rather than the point guard, because there's a difference in those roles. And I think that there's too much potential still to be fulfilled. And like I said, he's still 24 years old. There's a lot of potential out there. And I think that his whole life, he's just been operating off of talent and talent alone. He doesn't really strike me as a guy that's been grinding, that's been putting in hours at the gym. But now that he's at a reality check, I think that this offseason, we're going to see a whole different Ben Simmons. I think he's really going to get there in the gym. He's really going to work with, different people to kind of fix his mental issues when it comes to shooting the basketball. And I think that there's still time to get it fixed. And I think that Doc Rivers is another guy that you could blame. I think that with the options available, that they're not going to move the needle. Yeah, you could trade for a CJ McCollum, but is that going to be enough to offset the loss on defense? CJ McCollum can't guard to save his life. He can't play defense to save his life, even if he's able to drop 30 plus in the playoffs. And so Ben Simmons, I think that there's still certainly a role for him. Now it's going to take a lot of hard work for him to gain the trust of Philly fans, but he's still young, man. I think give him another chance. If there's another flame out next offseason, okay, then give him more thought. But as of right now, don't trade him while his value is at an all-time low. You're really not going to get enough. I think that if there's a trade for Bradley Beal to be done, then maybe trade Ben Simmons. But if it's not Bradley Beal or another superstar like Damian Lillard, then you're better off keeping him.
Yeah, out of all the injuries we've seen in the NBA playoffs, definitely one of the worst injuries is to Ben Simmons' psyche, because that free throw percentage, all-time low, you talk about it. And yeah, it's just disastrous for someone who's at the pro level in the NBA to be less than a 50% free throw shooter. Now, so you're saying you would do the 1-for-1 trades like Bradley Beal or Damian Lillard straight up?
Yes, sir.
And that's the thing, though. It's like, obviously, I think when people are talking about the trade situations here, it's like, how do you fix the 76ers team? Because now they built it around those two guys, that Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid dynamic. And you don't know how many more healthy seasons you're going to get at Joel Embiid. So I think that's put a lot more pressure to make a drastic move. We've seen stuff like this in the NBA or the NFL, where there's such a willingness to move off, for example, young quarterbacks so soon. And I think it's just because of the type of society we're in, where it's just like, what have you done for me lately? And what have you done for me lately is turned into literally like, what have you done for me in the last like 30 seconds, So I think that's one of the big reasons why people are so willing to move off Ben Simmons. But I think it's just, how do you fix someone's psyche? Like once it gets so like poisonous in the brain like that, like look at what happened to Markelle Fultz. So speaking of the 76ers organization, here we are, Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons, two guys, broken shots. How does that happen? Like, how do you like completely turn around some guys? Is just talking it out? Is that as simple as that?
I don't think it's that simple. Like I said, I really think that this offseason, we're going to see Ben Simmons really just hit the gym, really just start putting up shots. And I know that this is somewhat of a reach, but I'm going to go here anyway. In that same video, I talked about how, remember LeBron's finals meltdown in 2011? He kept choking and choking and choking against the Dallas Mavericks over and over and over again in the fourth quarter. He just wasn't the same LeBron James. Well, it wasn't just in that series in which he choked in the fourth quarter. Prior to that series, LeBron was known as a choker in the fourth quarter. That's the way he was for the first 7 to 8 years of his career. And no disrespect. I mean, he's still my favorite player to watch. And so I'm just really calling it how I see it, or at least how it was back then. LeBron he was famous for choking in the fourth quarter, but then he was able to eventually get over that hump. And after that finals against the Mavericks, look what he's become now. And so maybe get in touch with who LeBron got in touch with after that Mavericks finals and kind of go over a couple of therapy sessions with him. And on top of that, put in some work at the gym. Like I said earlier, Ben Simmons has been a guy that just relied on talent and talent alone. He wasn't much of a hard worker. But now that he's had a reality check, he's going to get in the gym. He's going to put up the shots. He's going to put in the work, and he's going to get help over here.
I think the worst problem, though, for Ben Simmons in particular is he's not putting himself even in a position to choke. There was that stat out there that he only took 3 shots in the fourth quarter between the 7 games against the Hawks. I mean, that's like not even a willingness to be aggressive enough to take control, especially, too, for someone that is perceived as a star athlete like Ben Simmons is. I think that is worrisome. You mentioned Doc Rivers. So, I mean, it seems like the 76ers are moving through with Doc at this point. And I think it's just so hard to find good coaching in the NBA in general to try and find like a guy that's just going to come in and completely turn around a Ben Simmons game, because we're talking about now between 2 different coaches, between Doc and Brent Brown there. And it doesn't seem like there's been much change in Ben Simmons' work ethic. So trying to find that right motivator, I think, is a lot tougher said than done right now.
No doubt. But I think that when you have your own teammates calling you out, throwing you under the bus in front of the national media, I think that's going to change things a little bit. We all saw what Joel Embiid said after the game. He was pretty much talking about the whole thing and how it went down with Ben Simmons passing up that layup, giving it to Thibault. I mean, when you get called out like that in front of the national media, I'd like to think that that'd reignite, or at least ignite a fire within you, especially when you're a guy like Ben Simmons, who's only 24 years old. He's still going to continue to grow. He still hasn't really fully developed yet. And so I think some of those things will definitely play itself out.
But did the 76ers match up well against the East moving forward too? Now we got to remember, we got this Nets team that's, yet to truly be unveiled, and whether they'll all stay healthy for a particular length of time, that's one of the big mysteries of the NBA right now. But if they are, do the 76ers even stand a chance against that big 3? Do they match up well against the Bucks? I mean, they do do a great job of building a wall whenever they face Giannis, and that's been the strategy to beat them. But now we're starting to see like an emergence of a Trae Young who just, despite everything going well for the 76ers, when you consider what Joel Embiid was able to do despite his meniscus injury, having leads in the majority of the games, if not, I believe, all games at one point. Can the 76ers team, without a drastic change, still compete in the East?
That's tough. I'm going to go out and say yes. Like I said, I'm still a big believer in Ben Simmons. I think that Joel Embiid, yes, it's a big if, but he's going to be a matchup problem for the Nets. Even if the Nets have a healthy big 3, who on the Nets is going to be able to guard Joel Embiid? As long as Ben Simmons is able to lock up on at least one of those guys, KD, Harden, or Kyrie, and then you have Embiid doing his thing in the post, then I think that they still most definitely have a chance. Now, they do have to make changes around the roster, and they won't be able to make any drastic changes, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they're able to pull off a trade for a CJ McCollum while keeping Ben Simmons, while keeping Tobias Harris, while keeping Joel Embiid. If they're able to do something like that, then I'd watch out.
They have had somewhat of an aggressive front office when they need to be. I mean, they did go out there and get Jimmy Butler a couple of years ago, go out there and get Tobias Harris a couple of years ago. Especially now with Daryl Morey at the helm, Daryl Morey's not afraid to make drastic changes to a roster to try and win a title. I mean, he said that is one of the things that he's relentlessly pursuing. And of course, he fell short when it came to Houston, different approaches for doing things. But, I do think that they do have a guy who's determined, at least in the front office. And that may actually be, too, another reason why Ben Simmons and him may be at odds in the future.